Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, the sixth item on your agenda today will be presented by the Wireline Competition Bureau and is entitled Restoring Internet Freedom.
We need an independent chairman at the helm of the FCC. We need someone who will make decisions based on statute, not based on political affiliation.
People tell me the same thing. They want fast, affordable, and reliable internet access.
The Federal Communications Commission is taking aim at net neutrality. FCC Chairman Ajit Pai has drafted a Restoring Internet Freedom Order to be voted on at the December 14th Commission meeting.
We propose to repeal utility-style regulation of the Internet. We propose to return to the Clinton-era light-touch framework that has been proven to be so successful. And we propose to put technologists and engineers, rather than lawyers and accountants, at the center of the online world.
Pai has been in favor of repealing the regulation.
Put simply, the Internet is the greatest free market success in history. And this is due, in large part, to a landmark decision made by President Bill Clinton and a Republican Congress in the Telecommunications Act of 1996. In that legislation, they decided on a bipartisan basis that it was the policy of the United States to preserve the vibrant and competitive free market that currently exists for the Internet, unfettered by federal and state regulation. For almost 2 decades, the FCC respected that policy. It adopted a light-touch regulatory framework, one explicitly approved by the Supreme Court, and one which enabled the Internet to grow and to evolve beyond almost anyone's expectations. Under this framework, a free and open Internet flourished. Under this framework, America's Internet economy produced some of the most successful online companies in history: Google, Facebook, and Netflix, just to name a few. Under this framework, the private sector invested about $1.5 trillion to build the networks that gave Americans high-speed access to the Internet. And under this framework, American consumers benefited from unparalleled innovation. But 2 years ago, the federal government's approach suddenly changed. The FCC, on a party line vote, decided to impose a set of heavy-handed regulations upon the Internet. It decided to slap an old regulatory framework called Title II, originally designed in the 1930s for the Ma Bell telephone monopoly, upon thousands of Internet service providers, big and small. It decided to put the federal government at the center of the Internet.
Now I'd like to talk about the nomination of Chairman Ajit Pai to lead the Federal Communications Commission for another 5 years.
The Hawaii congressional delegation is resisting the proposal. United States Senator Brian Schatz is the ranking member of the Senate Subcommittee on Communications, Technology, Innovation, and the Internet.
But the FCC is supposed to create competition and protect consumers, and Chairman Pai just isn't doing that.
He has been sounding the alarm over Pai's intentions since the FCC chairman's confirmation earlier this year.
First, Chairman Pai's FCC is trying to get rid of net neutrality. Now, net neutrality is a federal rule that says ISPs, Internet Service Providers, must treat all content equally. They can't discriminate by making certain kinds of content slower, charging more for other kinds of content, or blocking some content altogether. That's the basic premise of the Internet. Once you pay for your broadband Internet access, and then you jump on a browser, everything comes down at the same speeds. And it is so foundational to the way we use the Internet that it's actually hard to describe a future without net neutrality, but it could be that you pay your ISP and certain websites download fast. Certain websites are almost impossible to find. Certain websites, you have to pay a premium just to be able to capture their content. Forget what you may have to pay Hulu, Netflix, others. The ISP will essentially control your access to the Internet. And that's why net neutrality was so important. Not that things were necessarily undermining in that moment the current Internet, but that without a firm rule, these companies may have incentives to change the Internet as we know it.
Representative Tulsi Gabbard has also expressed opposition to the chairman's move.
Net neutrality is something that's fundamental to our country. It's rooted in our First Amendment rights. It allows for an open marketplace, an exchange of ideas, as a center for innovation, a hub of communication, and so much more. In today's digital, especially ensuring an open and free and equal internet for all, not just for those who can afford to pay to play, is crucial to level the playing field for everyone. Now, the FCC's current proposals roll back these freedoms for the benefit and profit of big internet service providers on the backs of students, entrepreneurs, and innovators, small businesses, and really all of us. Millions across the country have already sent in comments to the FCC expressing their strong opposition. And on today's Net Neutrality Day of Action, I encourage everyone to make their voices heard.
When Chairman Pai announced that the FCC would review the rules on net neutrality, he said, and I quote, "This is a fight we intend to wage, and it is a fight that we are going to win." But that's not how the FCC is supposed to work. This is a quasi-judicial agency. They are supposed to propose a rule, allow the public to weigh in, and then the agency considers the comments before making a decision. Chairman Pai made clear from the beginning that he already made his mind up, even though there were 22 million individual comments from American citizens about what we should do with the free and open internet. He decided in advance of that. Unfortunately, this is part of a pattern. Right after Congress took away the FCC's ability to protect people's privacy online, he wrote an op-ed essentially saying, good news. This is pretty unusual to have a chairman of a quasi-judicial body weigh in on something that the legislative branch does, or to completely disregard the process for public input.
Nothing about the internet was broken in 2015. Nothing about the law had changed. And there was not a rash of internet service providers blocking consumers from accessing the content, applications, or services of their choice. No, it was all about politics. Days after a disappointing 2014 midterm election, and in order to energize a dispirited base, the White House released an extraordinary and unprecedented YouTube video instructing the FCC to implement Title II regulations.
To put these protections in place, I'm asking the FCC to reclassify internet service under Title II of a law known as the Telecommunications Act. In plain English, I'm asking them to recognize that for most Americans, the internet has become an essential part of everyday communication and everyday life. The FCC is an independent agency, and ultimately this decision is theirs alone. But the public has already commented nearly 4 million times, asking the FCC to make sure that consumers, not the cable company, gets to decide which sites they use.
This was a transparent attempt to compromise the independence of the agency, and it worked. Notwithstanding the revisionist history offered by some, the FCC was not moving towards Title II regulation before the White House announcement. No, it was dragged kicking and screaming down that path. And what was the problem that Title II was supposed to address? Well, we were warned that without it, the internet would suddenly devolve into a digital dystopia of fast lanes and slow lanes. But strangely, the case for Title II was a fact-free zone. As internet entrepreneur Mark Cuban said near the end of 2014, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. The D.C. Circuit's 2014 decision has created an opportunity for the FCC to introduce more rulemaking. They shouldn't. Things have worked well. And as he put it, there is no better platform in the world to start a new business than the internet in the United States.
Chairman Pai has not yet demonstrated a willingness to stray from the party line. And one of the things I like about him is I know he's got a big brain. We have talk policy, and when we have private conversations, I can see that he likes the engagement, and he likes the job, and he likes public service. But the challenge is that there has been no instance in which he has done anything that was other than predictably Republican. And that's okay for now. It's only been a relatively short tenure, but what we need in an FCC chairman is someone who takes his own views and the facts as the record becomes established and makes up his own mind. He is not a Republican on the FCC. His job is to apply the facts and his own judgment.